the aim of the game essentially is for us to transfer the ball from one target to the other. However, the players are going to be locked in their zones, so they can't move out of their zone. And the ball must be played into this first zone here. Hi, I'm Bex Garlick, National Coach Development Lead for Women and Girls and the East Region. So the name of this session is called No Going Back, and it's a session that's going to focus on turning. For the purpose of this, we are defining turning as a very clear change of direction or an attempt at changing direction whilst in possession. This session can be delivered indoors or outdoors, and I would primarily deliver this to the older end of the foundation phase, around 8 to 11-year-olds. However, I have done this session with a number of age groups in the youth development phase and beyond, and it's always worked fine. So this session will challenge players around a number of different turns. We're going to start off really small-sided, and then we're going to go into a larger format. The reason why we're starting small-sided is because it will get those individual opportunities to turn and lots of repetition at that, but it will also get them combining in small numbers. So we want them to practice turns where they receive with their back to the defender. We want them to practice turns where they move a little bit to get on the ball and then try and move forwards and perhaps use a step over or a different type of turn to change direction and take it past the player. So lots of opportunities and repetition to turn and a different variety of turns as well. This is a target practice, and I think the first thing to notice is that I've gone for a really quite a thin yet long pitch, and I've done that on purpose because I want them to be challenged because they are only 1v1 in their areas. However, I also need to give them the space in which to turn into. If it was too tight, they wouldn't have that space to turn into and accelerate away, which is a really important part as you come out of the turn. So we've gone for a long and thin pitch. We have 2 target players either side of the area, and they are playing as neutral in this practice. And the aim of the game essentially is for us to transfer the ball from one target to the other. However, the players are going to be locked in their zones, so they can't move out of their zone. And the ball must be played into this first zone here. So what we're looking for is this player to think about their movement or their starting position as to where they're going to look to receive the ball from. So they're receiving it from the target. They might choose to pin the defender, and then from there you get perhaps a no-touch turn as they move there, or you might just get that little one round the corner. Or if they choose to move and receive in here, again, you get a different type of turn. You might get to a point where you're facing up, and that might be where you have to practice your step over. So they're thinking about their movement to get on the ball from the target player. Once it's gone in, all they've got to do is find their mate in the end. Again, we're not encouraging them to go straight to the target player. In some games, you might get them to do that, depending on what your outcome is. But because we're wanting to get that repetition of turning for all of our players, we want them to find that player in the next bit, and they will then transfer that ball to the target player at the end. If at any point the Blues or the opposition team win the ball, they've just got to do exactly the same. So they would play the ball back to their nearest target player, and then they would move to look to get on the ball, receive, turn, and then find their player in the end zone. And that's why these 2 players here are set as neutral players. You might be wondering why this session is called No Going Back. And the key restriction to this practice is that once they've received it from the target player, they can't go back to that same target player until it's gone to the opposite one. And again, the reason for that constraint is just to get that repetition of the different types of turn and to force this player here, who is receiving the ball, to practice their turning. Because if they could just do that and play it straight back and then we go, they're not going to get that practice at turning. So they can't go back, and from there it's just all about your coaching points to think about, again, what technique are they going to use in terms of that turn. So as it comes in, are they going to let the ball roll past them and play that no-touch turn? They might do that little flick round the corner. They might need to use the sole of their foot to put their foot on the ball and then do the turn, so that would be probably more of a two-touch turn. And the key thing around that is their scanning and their awareness of where this pressure is coming from. So if the pressure is on this side here, it's just thinking about their first touch that's going to allow them to do that turn, and their awareness of the space as well that they can turn into. They also need to be scanning to know where this player is here, and it's important then as coaches that we're talking to this player as well about their movement and their positioning to support. So they're also doing some scanning to think about and try and work out where the player is going to turn, the space that the player is going to turn into, and then are they in a best position to receive that pass. You might also speak to your target players about the type of pass that they play in. So for example, again, if they can see the defender is on this side, we wouldn't want that pass into their left foot. We'd want it into their right foot. So we can have conversations with the target players as well about how they can play that pass to allow this player to effectively turn and turn quickly. We've spoken a little bit about what they do during, so the type of touch, their awareness of the space, the type of turn that they use. And then the after bit, once it's gone in there, is very much just around where again are they moving to support, and thinking about if the ball transitions, how are they then in a position to defend and get the ball back as quick as they can. Obviously, the way that we're set up with this practice, we've got 6 players, but it's very rare that you get 6 players turning up at your session unless it's freezing cold. So you would always probably have more than that. So the way around that is you would just replicate this setup another time at the side in exactly the same setup. If you've got even more players, you might have 3 of these set up. It's what we call a parallel practice. Now, the most frustrating thing for me is when I've got 6 in here, and I think, oh, I'll just replicate it with 6, but then I get 11 turn up. So it's just having that what if and that plan in case we have an odd number. So different ways in which you could do this. If you've got players in there that you want to challenge, and they're probably kind of your thrivers in the group, you might put them up against 2 defenders if you wanted to. Or if you need to perhaps get rid of a player on one of the other pitches, because you've not got the numbers, you would just possibly take one of the targets out and you can just change the scoring system at the end. So if you've only got 5 players available for the target, ball comes in, they receive it, same from here, and then you might just challenge them to dribble over the line to score. So they're still receiving, they're still practicing that turn, they're still probably having to face up, to be fair, to get themselves over the line. And that links quite nicely into the progression I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. You might be wondering, well, how does the ball then get recycled? And again, it's just having that plan for what if. You just have a number of balls here at the side, and rather than it being almost multi-directional, you can just start from here every time, and this target player here just gets another ball. I think as well, it's thinking about what positions do your players play. So we always talk about how we can better include the goalkeepers, and the target players are perfect if you're wanting to incorporate your goalkeepers. You can get them feeding the ball out of their hands and doing that little rollout to the player. It's really important that goalkeepers practice with their feet. We see loads of that now where they're used to help recycle the ball and play around. So again, getting them to do that with their feet. So you might have your goalkeeper who's the constant target here, but you might have this player who's an outfield player who you want to keep swapping in. So a way around that is you could say, as it goes in, that player swaps with this one. As you can see, we're now going to progress the practice, and we're going to progress it into more of a bigger formatted game. I would still try and keep my pitch fairly long, and I might challenge them by just having it slightly thinner as well. Again, just to get that more repetition and get them a bit more under pressure. When you're thinking about the last practice I've just shown you, and also this one, obviously I've drawn it on here so that you can see it. But just consider what is the relevant size of the area based on the age and stage of the players that you're working with. So we're now going to play 6v6. You can see that we've got our halfway line in again, and the game is still called no going back. We've now got our goalkeepers in, and they've got to play out to one of their teammates in their own half. And the rule is, the restriction on the practice is that the ball cannot be passed backwards. So if it comes from the goalkeeper, they can't pass it back to the goalkeeper. Or if their player, one of their teammates, drops back here, again, it can't be a backwards pass. Okay? So again, it's just getting them to think about how they receive the ball, their body position, the angle of their body, to allow them to turn and hopefully play forwards. You might get some sideways passes coming in, but again, you can step in as the coach and just talk through the risk of what happens if you play a sideways pass, because often that sideways pass is very easy to intercept. So we're wanting to try and encourage the players to think forwards and play forwards. There will be times where they are unopposed and they can think about how they turn to play forwards. There'll also be times, perhaps, if the ball comes in here, where they're under that little bit of pressure. And again, it's just the same coaching points as before. Scanning, looking where the defender is, which side are they on, where's that pressure coming from, how much is that pressure, where's the space that I can turn into, and who are my teammates that I might be able to look forwards and play forwards to as well. The coaching points I've just referred to again, I think often when we go into bigger formats of the game, it's really difficult to spot, because when you're in like your 2v2s and in the practice previous, you're a little bit more focused because there's less players to look at. So my challenge to you is, when you are coaching this, please try and still spot those opportunities to get in and talk to those players about those key points, because this now is much closer to the reality of the game, and it's in those moments where they probably most need our help, because there's lots more for them going on as well, as much as there is lots more things for us to spot. So you might choose to just focus in for a few minutes on a particular player. So you might say that I'm going to focus in on this player here, and you're really going to look at those coaching points that you just spoke about in terms of their scanning, their movement, their positioning, what's their technique like when they receive it and look to try and turn. So you might just zoom in, almost like a player cam, to really hone in on those capabilities that you're looking for, and then you can go in and affect based on what information they need to help them. The other progression to this practice is a little bit of a reward challenge as well. So not only have we got the restriction that they can't go backwards, and you might start with that because that links in nicely to the game previous. The progression is that if they can dribble the ball over the halfway line, and then as a team we can go and score. So they might dribble it over the halfway line and play it into their mate, and we end up scoring a goal from it. That goal would be worth 3 goals. Why am I going to do that as a reward for them? Well, again, it's getting them. Remember, we spoke about a turn is a clear change in direction. So a turn isn't always necessarily the ball coming in and that almost explicit turn, if you like. It could be where we're facing the defender up and we've got to do that change of direction, that little step over to cause a bit of deception. So I'm pretending to go one way, but actually I'm going the other. So again, forcing them to try and dribble, or encouraging them to try and dribble over the halfway line for that reward of 3 goals if we get a goal from it, just encourages those different types of turn to come out. So again, that repetition and that bit more variety on your turns, which we probably didn't get in the previous practice because they were locked in their zones.